I mean, a lot of it's an homage to The Godfather, if we're perfectly honest. You know, I
Mhm.
see Thomas as a sort of Michael Corleone crossed with a bit of Tommy Shelby from Piggy Blinders kind of thing. And I think they're so iconic that, you know, the image of the sort of 20s through 1940s American gangsters. Everybody, you just got to say those words, and you can already see the guy, can't you? Do you know what I mean?
Hello, friends. My name is Steve, and I'm here today with author Peter McLean. Peter, thanks for joining me today.
Hi, Steve. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, I've been wanting to chat with you for a long time because Priest of Bones was my first grimdark book, and it
Oh
was like
wow.
it has a special place in my heart. So it's always been a goal of mine to be able to talk to you, pick your brain about it.
Oh, that's good to know. Thanks. Thanks.
Yeah,
You say it's grimdark. It's a funny expression. I've done no end of panels along the theme of what is grimdark with various other authors and reviewers. And yet absolutely nobody agrees on a definition of what grimdark actually is. But we'll
no,
go with that. It's that kind of thing. I mean, it's heroic fantasy. There's violence and not everybody's terribly nice in a nutshell. But
yeah, it's so funny the reaction that that term has. What does grimdark mean to you? What's your in your
I
mind? What
think
comes to your mind?
to me it means consequences. It's kind of the antithesis of the rainbows and unicorns, everybody lives happily ever after kind of epic fantasy where you can go fight a great big war and nobody's got PTSD afterwards and nobody's lost any limbs or anything horrible like that. Whereas a grimdark's the exact opposite of that to me. It doesn't necessarily mean horrible people doing evil things,
Mhm.
but it means that there are consequences to your actions, and probably not everybody's going to get out alive because in history in real wars it just doesn't work like that.
No,
So
definitely not.
that's kind of what it means to me. But as I say, we've established it means a different thing to everybody. I think.
Yeah, and even some people just really dislike that term for some reason. I'm not sure why it has this bad reaction from some people.
Yeah, I don't dislike it. I mean, it's a marketing label like any other. I don't find it terribly useful, as nobody agrees what it means. I don't think it's really carrying out its fair share of the work, to be honest with you. But it's a good a label as any. It lets people know roughly the sort of thing they're getting, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I always hesitate to call things grimdark because everyone, like you said, everyone has a different definition. So, not sure if it's dark fantasy or what you would call it. I think everyone has a different idea. But
Yeah, yeah, I think so.
and it's funny you mentioned PTSD because I think in Priest of Bones, I think it was a big theme in that book is the mental scars that the
Mm.
characters had from all their experiences.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. I mean, that's completely done on purpose. I think it's
Yeah.
well, I mean, we've been at war for almost as long as I can remember in one shape or form. And I think it does a disservice to our servicemen and women to pretend that it doesn't have a lasting impact on those who serve, because of course it does.
Mhm.
And I mean, Tolkien knew this, the state of Frodo by the end of Lord of the Rings. But of course, Tolkien was a veteran of the Great War. He'd been there. He knew what war does to people. And I think people who don't. I mean, I'm not a military man. I've not served. I did some research, I just think it's something we should do when it's a real thing. I mean, all right, the after effects of magic, you can make whatever you like because magic isn't real, but going to war, unfortunately, still very much is real. And I think
Mhm.
we owe it to when you're writing about real things that have happened to real people. You owe it to them to do it right, in my opinion. So yeah, no, it is a big part of the book, definitely, and the effect the wars had on a lot of the characters.
Yeah, and I think it made the book deeper for me because I didn't before reading Priest of Bones. I didn't really have a lot of experience reading even fantasy books. So it
Okay.
opened doors. It opened doors for me what can be done because I always thought of unicorns and swords and shields and everyone lives happily ever after, and not dive deeper
Mm.
into these kind of themes. So it was really eye opening for me.
Yeah, I think the genre's moved on. I mean, it does. It was never all unicorns and everyone lives happily ever after. As I say, I refer back to Lord of the Rings. It's not like that at all. But in recent years, or recent-ish years now, I suppose, I'm getting older, lose track of time. But I mean, I think David Gemmell started it with his particular brand of heroic fantasy and Glenn Cook's Black Company.
Mm.
And then, Joe Abercrombie's written some fantastic things, and George Martin's obviously with Song of Ice and Fire. Is, you know, you. I mean, I read those as they first came out because I'm of a certain age, and I'm thinking, oh yeah, this is the Ned Stark show. He's the hero. He's gonna. Oh fuck, he's
Yeah.
dead. You know what I mean? And it's like, okay, this is a different kind of fantasy novel. You know? And I think it's just taken off over recent years. And I mean, you've got people like Anna Smith Spark with The Empires of Dust, which I absolutely adore those books. But the premise is it's Alexander the Great, but he's a demon, and you know, it's very very different to Elf goes on quest to retrieve Thing from Dark Mountain. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, there's definitely evolution. I think the genre's not changed because you can still buy plenty of old-fashioned style fantasies, and that's what a lot of people like, and fair play to them, you know. But I think it's broadened, and there's a lot more choice than there used to be. And yeah, stuff like myself and Anna and R.J. Barker and Ed McDonald Wright is a different type of fantasy. It's not. I wouldn't go so far as to say it's the new type of fantasy because you can still get the old type, but yeah, it's another option.
Yeah. It's nice to have options
Yeah.
for sure. Yeah. So when you started writing this series, did you always intend for it to be 4 books, or did that just kind of come together?
No, it didn't come together. It kind of fell to bits, to be honest.
Okay.
It was always supposed to be a trilogy, but oh god, I did a panel with Michael Fletcher yesterday. Actually, we got up to this. He said, "What are you worst at as an author?" I was like, "Planning." It's as simple as that. Ended up accidentally writing a trilogy of 4 books because I outline quite substantially before I write. So I know the plot beats. I know where I'm going. I might make up the bits in between, but ultimately I know where I'm going and the shape of the plot. And I had a 15-page outline for what was then called Priest of Crowns, the third and final book of the trilogy. And I'm sitting there, I'm beavering away, and I don't know, 50, 60,000 words down. And I'm still on page 1 of the outline. I think, Houston, we have a problem here. I cannot send my editor a 500,000 word book. She'll knife me. So, well, we had to have, I had to have a bit of a full and frank with my agent, and we had a conversation with my editor Joe Fletcher at Joe Fletcher Books here in the UK, who's absolutely brilliant and really really supportive, bless her. And she said, "Yep, yeah, it needs to be 2 more books, doesn't it?" So I was like, "Yes, yeah, it really does. Thank you very much, Joe." Chop the outline in half, simple. I'll just write the first half of it. And I looked at that and I thought, "Yeah, well, it's shit now, isn't it? It doesn't work. It just stops. That's not a book."
Yeah.
So Priest of Gallows took a lot of plot gymnastics to whip into shape to make it work as a book while you wait for Priest of Crowns, which is now book 4 that's out this August. And really is the last one. I promise this time.
Okay.
It really, really is. But yeah, I had to move deaths around, and great political events had to change and happen sooner, and some had to be pushed back. And I was like, oh, I'm never, ever doing this again. Nightmare. So no, it was not supposed to be 4 books, but it's just kind of worked out that way. I always think, oh, and there was a great hoo-ha on Twitter earlier last week, I think, about word counts and how long the book should be, and everybody got very excitable and hostile at each other for no reason. But I think the story needs to be as long as it needs to be. It's as simple as that. Stories are a liquid. If you're not careful, they'll expand to fill the available space. And in this case, this one overflowed. It's as simple as that. So what can you do? But it needs to be the length that it is. And like I say, Joe's been doing this for donkey's years. She knows that. She got it. And thankfully, it's all worked out all right in the end. But oh dear me, some sleepless nights putting Gallows together. I really did.
So how do you keep track? Because you had to, there's some
Excuse me.
gymnastics that had to be done for the story when you said it's gonna be 4 books. How do you keep track of all the interactions and characters and world?
Oh, I keep a story bible, and this is a little trick I learned. I used to do IP tie-in writing, so I've written quite a lot of short fiction for Warhammer,
Mhm.
and they're very very hot on lore and details. And because I mean, obviously Warhammer fiction exists to sell Warhammer models and games, of course it does. So it's got to be right. And
Mhm.
I don't play Warhammer, so talk about a vertical learning curve. So I just started writing everything down, every facet of lore I learned, I was writing down and keeping in my Warhammer story bible. And I started doing that. I thought, this is actually really handy. And I hadn't done it with my first trilogy, the Burn Man books, and I did get in a bit of a muddle with who's dead and who's still alive with that. I had to keep going back and reading the last book and thinking, can I use this guy or did I kill him? You know, so that, I'm not doing that again with a thing the size of Rose Thorn. So I wrote every time I named a character, mentioned a place, described where something was in relation to something else in the Bible, it goes. So it's easy to find, and honestly, it is very satisfying in Word using the strike through font effect to cross someone's name out when you kill them off. So spares you from any embarrassing mistakes of Lazarus coming back in book 3 after you'd knifed him in book 1, which wouldn't do.
Oh, find every place, right?
Yeah, oh, absolutely, absolutely
Yeah.
everything. If I say he went upstairs from this room to that room, there's a note that room's upstairs from this room, kind of thing. And yeah, it's a good little technique. I think that's served me quite well. Saved my copy editor a lot of work as well, no doubt.
Yeah. There must be a lot of work to keep track of all that.
Oh, it is. Copy editors are worth their weight in gold. Honestly, in Priest of Bones, I was spared my blushes by my copy editor, who spotted that the last week before the wedding was a day shorter than it should have been, and none of it would have worked because it's that week. The scenes in that week are so timing dependent, and I'd just forgotten to you know, I know I couldn't, but I've never had such a thorough editor before. They sent me a spreadsheet with days of the week on it and what happens on what day. I was like, oh my god, you know this thing better than I do. You know, and I was just, I mean, it was such an easy fix. That was you just sort of said something like, then I went to bed the next morning and had a problem solved. But I would never have spotted it in a million years. Unbelievable.
Yeah, it's quite a bit of work. And
Yeah.
so, what other inspirations? What other things inspired you to write War for the Rose Throne?
Oh, gangster movies as much as anything. I do read quite a lot of fantasy, but I also read an awful lot of crime fiction and thrillers. And I don't really watch a lot of TV and movies, but I do love gangster movies. And I mean, a lot of it's an homage to The Godfather, if we're perfectly honest. You know, I
Mhm.
see Thomas as a sort of Michael Corleone crossed with a bit of Tommy Shelby from Piggy Blinders kind of thing. And I think they're so iconic that the image of the sort of 20s through 1940s American gangsters. Everybody, you just got to say those words, and you can already see the guy, can't you? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
And I wanted to do that because it's funny. I don't know if you've read Joe Abercrombie's Best Served Cold.
I did. Yeah, I just read that
Yeah,
last month. Yeah.
excuse me. There's a bit in that where Schenk the assassin is on. Oh, I forget whose trail now, but he goes and busts a fantasy opium den and slaughters all the gangsters' men and holds them up by the throat and beats information out of him. And I was like, I want to write about that guy. You know, not the assassin, they've been done to death. The mob boss that he's beaten up. I want to write about that guy in fantasy land because this is the first time I've ever seen him and he's very underrepresented. I thought, these are two of my favorite things. I'll just ram them together and see what happens. And Priest of Bones is kind of what happened.
But it really worked. I like
Yeah,
the
I take
mix
this
of yeah.
process very seriously, you can tell. But
Yeah. I like this and this. Let's smash it together and see what happens.
yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I think it's easy, especially once you're published and you're doing this at least semi-professionally. It's easy to lose sight of the fact that this is supposed to be fun. You know what I mean? This is ultimately why every author started writing. Nobody thinks I need to make money, I'll be an author, because seriously, it's one of the lowest paying jobs on earth per hour you put into it. You do it because it's fun, because it's what you enjoy doing. And it is dangerously easy once you're doing something for money to let it stop being fun. And then, well, what are you doing it for? You know?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And so with the characters, I think everyone loves Bloody Ann. I don't know anyone who doesn't love Bloody Ann.
Mm, she's
Uh,
my favorite.
yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Where did the inspiration for characters come from?
Oh, they just. This is where I always sound a little bit insane, to be honest. They just appear in my head, fully formed people. I don't sort of have to sketch out characters or do character sheets. They'll just turn up, knock me up the back of the head, and go, "Oi!" Right about me, mush. But no, I wrote Bloody Anne to be the sort of best mate slash big sister I wish I had. And yeah, she's my favourite character in the books as well. I mean, I know it's Thomas's story, but Thomas isn't the most likable man on earth, to put it mildly. But I think Anne's great. I love her a bit in her special way. I wouldn't want to pick a fight with her, but
No, no, definitely not.
no. So we're being adapted for TV at the moment.
Mhm.
And I know this, it's gonna have to change a lot. There is no first-person TV drama. It's just not a thing. And I know the scriptwriter feels much the same way and is looking to sort of bring Anne forward as more of a major character. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what she does with that. I think that's going to be good.
How has that process been getting it adapted? Has that been like a roller coaster? Because I would imagine
Oh,
it's up and down.
absolutely. I mean, it just came out of absolutely nowhere. So, I mean, just get one thing straight up front. Being adapted and being in development do not mean anybody's actually filming a TV show because they're not. Hopefully, one day they will be, but at the moment, somebody is writing a pilot script, which is a lot further than a lot of options get. To be
Mhm,
fair, so I'm really happy with that. But it completely came out of the blue. So apparently, a gentleman called David Heyman, who's a very famous Hollywood producer who made the Harry Potter movies, had somehow, I have no idea how it happened, somehow read Priest of Bones. I can only assume he's a fan of the genre. And he'd obviously phoned somebody at UCA and just gone, get me this. I really don't know how it happened, but I'm suddenly getting a call from my agent saying, I've got a man at UTA, which I don't know if you know, United Talent, one of the biggest screen agencies in the States,
mhm.
says, I've got an agent at UTA emailing me asking if you want to talk about a TV option. He's like, are you interested? I'm like, you fucking kidding me? Yes. Of course I am. And I had a call with the chap from UTA, and he's like, oh, Heyday Television are really interested in this, which is David Heyman's TV production company over in London. He's like, oh, do you want to work with me? Do you want to set up a call with it? Well, yeah, go for it. And I had, it must have been, I think, a maximum of a 40-minute phone call with the head of production at Heyday. And I'm sitting here in this office on the side of my house thinking, what's going on? People like me don't get to talk to people like you. This is nuts. And they bought the option to the first two books, and then the pandemic hit, and it all just stopped. And I'm like, okay, got paid. Suppose quite a lot of money for a 40-minute phone call. I'm happy with that. And then suddenly it's like, oh, it's awful. I've forgotten her name, but the lady that's writing the script is a very established Hollywood screenwriter, and
Hmm.
I should have her name written down, and I haven't. So I only apologise for that. It's like, oh, this person's been assigned to the project, as they say, and he's writing the adaptation. I'm like, really? Okay, lovely. Whether it'll go any further, I have no idea. I hope at least I'll get to see a script at some point, and I don't know how it works after that. To be honest, I really don't. But it's quite surreal to think it even could happen.
Yeah, I mean, that's what was your
Yeah, I mean,
reaction when you
loads of
got done?
people sell. Well, I was a bit cynical about it to start with because loads of authors sell or even give away options, and nothing happens. A lot of production companies, if there's something they want to make, will go out and buy up the options to everything they can find that's remotely similar, so nobody else makes anything competitive, and just stick them on the shelf because it's peanuts to a TV company, but still quite nice pocket money for the author. So you think, oh, thank you very much. Okay, move on, get on with your day, kind of thing. But now, no, the fact that they've attached a screenwriter people have actually heard of to it, I'm thinking, I don't know. I mean, it might go somewhere. Let's hope so. Be
I
great.
hope so.
I'd love to see it on TV. I really, really would. And I think it is quite adaptable.
Mhm.
It's filmable at not ridiculous money because I mean, there's no dragons or legions of evil monsters or anything like that. It's just people fighting other people in somewhere that's basically Edinburgh. So it's probably not enormously onerous to shoot, but I know nothing about the TV industry at all, to be honest, other than what I've just told you. And most of that I've learned off an agent friend of mine who used to work in Hollywood. So I don't know.
And
We
so
will
if they
see.
if they option it, how long do they own it forever, or is there a time
No,
period
oh
where?
no, no, no. It's a rolling yearly thing. So they renewed it for the second year, which surprised the hell out of me because I mean, I thought with the pandemic and everything, TV production had just stopped and they'd given up on it. But so the fact that they renewed it was very encouraging. And then when I heard somebody was actually working on it, I thought, I thought, well, this is amazing. But no, no, it's a rolling annual thing. So they have to keep electing to keep it. You never sell perpetual rights to anything.
Hmm.
No, that really is a rookie error.
Yeah, that'd be a pain.
Yeah.
Uh,
Oh,
and
definitely.
yeah. So I know that. How do you feel now that the story is coming to an end with the fourth book? What is that feeling like to you?
Well, it's weird because this has never happened before. So I say I had a trilogy out before, but that should have been 5 book series, and the third one just died a death. Like it
Hmm.
just didn't sell, so the publisher axed it. So
Hmm.
effectively, this is the first time I've finished a series. So I abandoned the first thing for dead because I've moved on now. But yeah, so Priest of Crowns is completely done. I finished the proofread last week. So I've just got to write the dedication and acknowledgements, and that's the last I'll see of it till I'm holding a copy in my hand. And it's an incredible sense of achievement and accomplishment,
Mhm.
and it's a bit sad in a way too because I've lived with these people in my head for 4 or 5 years. I think in Thomas Piety's voice, you know what I mean, and I'm gonna miss that. I'm gonna miss Anne, who, like I say, is basically my best mate, even though she doesn't actually exist. And then it's a bit terrifying because I'm thinking, well, this is really done quite well. And it's like, oh God, I've got to do it again now. I don't know that I can. I'm not sure I can. I mean, I was reading, obviously doing the proofs, so I was reading Crowns again. And I was thinking, oh bloody hell, how did I write this? I'm not this good. I can't do this again. And then you have to sort of stop and think, yeah, well, I didn't because my editor and my agent all contributed. And it's the final book is never the book you wrote. It ends up
Hmm.
being the book you collaborated on with people who were
Hmm.
very, very good editors. So I have to keep telling myself that because the prospect of starting all over again in a new world with new people is a bit daunting, to be honest. But I think every author probably has this. I don't know. I'll
Sure.
get there, I'm sure. But yeah, it's a bit of a bittersweet feeling in a way, definitely. But overall, yeah, I'm just pleased to have done it. I have a finished 4 book fantasy series that is all published and all concluded and is done. Didn't get cancelled this time, so it's all good.
Is there are there have you thought about writing other stories in the same world, like a prequel or after?
Oh, I would absolutely love to. I think I don't know. Prequels are a hard sell because it's very hard to put any sort of narrative tension in a prequel because you know who's going to live and who's not, just purely based on who's in the books you've already read, kind of thing. I would love to keep writing in the same world. I think that's a conversation to have with my editor as to. I mean, it comes down everything in publishing comes down to sales. It is business in the end. If there's perceived to be enough demand for it, well, of course I would. It it wouldn't be a continuation of the story for reasons I'm not going to tell you because Crowns isn't out yet.
Yeah.
But it could easily be in the same world with some of the same characters potentially, or like Abercrombie's done, the descendants of the characters from the original series. So that's an option, and it's definitely something I'd like to do. But I think I'll probably do something else in between because I think it's going to be a while before my publisher's got the numbers to say yay or nay on that.
Mm.
And I don't want to sit and do nothing for 2 years. That's a waste of life. And so I'm sure I'll come up with something else. I've got a couple of ideas on the burner, but
Oh, good.
we will see. See what bears
Looking
fruit.
looking forward to what you come up with.
Yeah.
And the it's funny you mentioned the business side of it. I think the cover art is a big side of the industry. It
Oh
has to
yeah.
have an eye catching cover.
Mm.
I love the covers on the series. How did
Oh,
that
they're
all come to be?
fabulous, aren't they? Well, I mean, my original deal was with Ace at Penguin Random House, and they assigned an in-house cover artist, a lady called Katie Anderson, who did Priest of Bones and Priest of Lies, and I absolutely adore them both. And unfortunately, Ace didn't continue the series after Lies, but luckily, Joe Fletcher Books at Hachette did. So they're the UK editions for the last two books, and obviously with US distribution. But I was talking covers with Joe, and I was like, can you find out if Katie Anderson also freelances, which nearly all artists do? Because I just love the covers she's done, and I want to keep the same look and feel. And again, Joe absolutely agreed. Reached out to Katie, yeah, love to, brilliant. And I don't know if you've seen the cover for Crowns yet, but it's the best of the lot. It's my pinned tweet on Twitter. It is
Yeah.
glorious. But I mean, the color progressions are all played for, is all deliberate. You know, the different central motifs and the differing architectural backgrounds are all deliberate. It's, oh, she's just done a fantastic job. I'll forever be grateful to Ms. Anderson for that. Best covers the series could have had. I think they suit it so well.
Yeah, they're really great cover artwork, and it's important
Yeah.
to have good covers.
Oh, it is. I think every time somebody says never judge a book by its cover, a cover designer throws himself off a roof. I mean, that's it's literally the cover is literally there to make people pick the book up in the store. It's absolutely vital to have a good cover.
Yeah, definitely. And with fantasy, what do you enjoy about fantasy? Writing it or reading it or absorbing it?
Oh, both. I mean, I do read quite a lot of fantasy. I mean, I was saying about Empires of Dust is one of my favourite things ever.
Mm,
I absolutely adore those books, but they don't read like fantasy. They read like mythology. They're Homeric. They're just designed to be read aloud. I think they're
mm,
incredibly poetic. But I love oh, what have I read recently? Oh, R.J. Barker's Tidechild trilogy is. But it's a weird thing. I like fantasy that isn't like fantasy, if you see what I mean. I was like,
yeah,
I like Anna Smith's Spark because it's not like fantasy, it's like mythology. I love R.J. Barker's Tidechild because it's not like fantasy, it's like Master and Commander,
yeah,
but with dragons. You know, I like that sort of thing. I mean, Priest of Bones isn't like fantasy; it's a gangster novel with a fantasy hat on it. That's the kind of thing I like. I mean, Ed McDonald's Raven's Mark's got a real kind of Wild West flintlock kind of frontier storytelling style to it. I I'm not a fan of the Tolkien alikes.
yeah.
Although, I mean, to be fair, you don't actually get a lot of that anymore. But that was, I was thinking back in the 80s when I was first reading fantasy, you sort of pick up, I don't know, Sword of Shannara and Eye of the World and that sort of thing. I think, "Oh, I read this before, I'm sure I have. Do you know, much as I love Wheel of Time, but certainly the first book is very much a Tolkien alike. I know it differs, goes off in its own, becomes its own thing after a while, but people don't really do that so much anymore.
Yeah.
And Nicholas Eames is Kings of the Wild. You know, that's not really a fantasy book. That's Spinal Tap with swords. You know, what I mean? John French's The Grey Bastards is oh god, what's it called? Motorbikes.
Like
Thing of Anarchy. Can't remember what it's called now off the TV.
Sons of
But
Anarchy.
Sons of Anarchy. That's it. Yeah, but they're orcs and they ride pigs instead of hogs. So they're genius. I love that sort of thing. It's this little stuff that either doesn't take itself too seriously or that takes itself extremely seriously is about my wheelhouse. I'm not into sort of middle of the road fluff. I
Yeah,
like it to either be knowingly silly and having fun with itself, or really sweeping and epic and bombastic and overblown. You know, I actually called Anna's books death metal opera, which she thought was wonderful. But that's really what they're like. I think the only thing I can liken them to is Scott Baker's Second Apocalypse,
mm.
which is one of the darkest, most disgusting, most bombastic things ever committed in the name of fantasy. But bloody hell, it's good. You know what I mean?
Oh wow.
Really
So,
is.
I'm reading The Darkness That Comes Before Now. So
Oh right, yeah. First one in the series, excellent
yeah,
stuff. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. Buckle up.
yeah. I keep hearing how dark it is, and I thought, well, it's not too bad yet. I mean, I'm only a few
Mm,
hundred pages in, so
well, there you go
yeah,
then. Yeah.
holding on tight. And so for casting for the show, if it does come to happen, hopefully, we all hope it does. Have you thought about casting it in your mind? Have you casted?
Oh, I'm bad at actors. I watch so little TV. I think being silly and saying money no object, Tom Hardy for Thomas Party. Absolutely,
Mm,
definitely. I don't know if it ever aired in the States, but he had a TV show over here called Taboo,
mhm.
which was set in about 1780, I think. The it honestly, I watched that and I thought, fuck me, somebody's filmed Priest of Bones without telling me. It's so the aesthetic is so perfect for my stuff. I was like, oh, I'd love to have it look like this. But other than that, I mean, who would you cast as Anne? I've got no idea, to be honest. I'm not very good at actors. But I don't know, Ailsa again, if we're throwing the money problem out the window, Shilpa Shetty, I think would be absolutely perfect. But no, I don't know. Somebody suggested somebody for Fat Luca to me a little while ago, and I can't remember who it was now. But yeah, the guy looked the part, whoever he was, anyway. But no, I'm not a TV or movie watcher as a rule. If it's not old Jimmy Cagney gangster films, I'm probably not watched it.
What is your favorite, gangster movie? What is your if you
Oh,
can
The
only pick one?
Godfather,
Yeah.
The Godfather, one and two, which are basically all part of the same movie.
Yeah.
They only made two.
Yeah, you don't
There isn't a third one. That's a myth.
Oh, I was about to ask you about that.
There is no third Godfather movie. But no, Godfather and Godfather Part Two are absolute perfection. And I'd say Goodfellas is probably the first runner up, but you can't top the best.
Yeah, it's Goodfellas is up there too, but yeah, The Godfather is it's hard to
Oh,
beat
it's
that.
absolutely iconic, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh, yeah,
Fantastic filmmaking.
definitely.
Love
And
it.
I've seen you mention before about, history, UK history specifically. Are there any points in history that inspired plots in the books?
Yeah, well, not plots exactly, but settings definitely.
Yeah.
Oh, excuse me. So I'm quite interested in the Tudor period because it was a fascinating period of English history, an awful lot of change and a lot of stuff going on then. That's the main aesthetic in Ellenberg. It's fairly Tudor-esque, but in the later books, when you go to Dansburg, it's more Regency.
Mm,
And I had this conversation with a historian who I thought was going to get really annoyed with me, but he didn't actually. He just got it, and I've done that to show the social gulf between the poor in the provinces of Ellenberg and the extremely wealthy in the capital in Dansburg. And I think you have to go with what people recognise and what people can relate to. I mean,
mhm.
there's a trope called history is unrealistic, and it is because it looks wrong a lot of the time. I mean, when I've got the incredibly wealthy people having a banquet in Dansburg, I could have done it as a Tudor banquet because I know what a Tudor banquet looks like, but an awful lot of people don't. And it would have looked weird and silly and a bit gross. So by doing it as a Regency banquet, which is the sort of foods people by and large recognize and what people would say, oh, that's posh now,
Yeah.
it was a basically silver service kind of thing. It it shows you the difference. And I thought this is probably the way to go. So yeah, I mean, in Ellenberg, it's basically the 15th century, and in Dansburg, it's the early 18th century. But it doesn't matter because I'm not writing historical fiction. It's a way of showing that social divide, which is more the point I was trying to make. But I think to be able to do that thing, you've got to actually know the periods you're using, even if you're not using them remotely correctly. But so yeah, no, I'm a big fan of social history books. I'm not one for kings and queens and battles and things. I like how much a baker earned in 1550 and what he would have had for his dinner and where he would have got it and all this kind of thing. That normal people in history fascinate me far more
Mm.
than royalty and lords and ladies do.
Yeah, because yeah, that's and yeah, that's what you really. I think that's what that's what we relate to more is just a
Yeah.
regular everyday person going
Oh,
through it.
exactly. Of course it is. Of course it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And have you noticed a difference in the reaction to your books from UK audiences and US audiences? Is there a difference there?
Ah, I don't know really. I know. I think they've sold better in the UK than they did in the States.
Hmm.
I don't know if that's because obviously I'm British. They're written with a very British voice.
Hmm.
I think I don't think American audiences necessarily have quite the tolerance for swearing and violence in fantasy books that British audiences do. I could be doing a disservice there. I don't know, but yeah, I mean, I've got a lot of very loyal American fans, but
Hmm.
I don't think it's as mainstream over there. I mean, Brandon Sanderson is vast in America, isn't he? Huge following, and much less so here. Whereas I think it took Abercrombie quite a while to crack the States at all, whereas he was huge here almost from day one. So I don't know if it's just differing tastes or it's how foreign authors are marketed in different countries. I don't know really.
Hmm. Yeah, I was curious about that, about how the different audiences react differently. And have you ever written a scene or a storyline that you said, "Well, should I? Is that too far?" Have you ever questioned yourself?
Yeah, you haven't read Priest of Gallows yet, have you?
No, yeah, I'm on my way.
No, you'll know when you get there. Now,
Okay.
my lovely wife Diane is my first reader. She's not even really a fantasy reader, but she does like crime thrillers, so there's a lot of crossover. But she's always my first reader. She sees everything even before my agent does. And she was reading um, the submission draft of Gallows. And I tend to sit in the library in the house of an evening, and she sits in the TV room because she watches TV and I don't. But she was reading this thing, and she got up, stalked into the room, fixed me with a look, and said, "You horrible, horrible, horrible man," and marched out again. I was like, I know exactly which bit you've just read. But yeah, luckily my editor loved it, so it's still there. It's still grossing people out to this day. So yeah, that's book 3, and you'll know when you get there.
Okay. So when someone has a reaction like that, do you like, yeah, I got it.
Yes,
Yeah.
I nailed it. Yes.
Yeah. And when
Yeah,
you're yeah.
I don't write gratuitously horrible things. I'm not writing horror novels, but it makes a point about don't want to spoil it for you.
Yeah.
About an institution more than about a person, really, and what is considered okay within this institution. And you're reading it thinking, "Oh, really?" you know. So
And
yeah, Joe thought it worked, so that's all good.
oh, that's good stuff. That's good stuff. And another thing that I really liked about Priest of Bones of the series so far is the magic system. There's not a ton of magic, and the magic that there is, it's powerful, but it's not
Mm,
world changing. It's kind of like ground level.
yeah, that's what I wanted. I mean, these are common men and women and grunt level soldiers, and I wanted grunt level magic.
Mm,
It's deliberately it's called the cunning because I mean in old English history there were people called the cunning folk, and they were your herb women and your midwives and sort of people that did things that the church sort of looked a bit sideways at, but just about allowed because it wasn't doing anything particularly forbidden, and everyone was sort of a bit respectful of them and a bit scared of them, kind of thing. But yeah, so I wanted it to be completely mysterious. I don't like magic systems anyway, where everything's explained to the nth degree, because to me, then it stops feeling like magic and starts feeling like physics or chemistry or something. But the fact that obviously the books are first person, so they're narrated by Thomas. You only ever know what Thomas knows, and he doesn't actually know a hell of a lot because he's not an educated man. He's the son of a bricklayer from the slums of Ellenberg, who was apprenticed at 10 and sent off to war at 20. So he's not had much of an education, and he sees the boy do this completely inexplicable weird shit, and that's how it stays. It's completely inexplicable weird shit because he doesn't know what he's looking at, other than he's not very keen on it.
yeah.
But of course, it turns out to be useful, so kind of makes his peace with it, like people made their peace with cunning folk in days of old, which is exactly what I was going for.
Hmm. Yeah, another thing that, because I was reading a lot of management books as when I was reading Priest of Bones, I was reading like management stuff and kind of like some self help books. And
Mm.
the I saw some parallels in Priest of Bones because Thomas talks a lot about pulling levers, pulling the right
Yeah.
levers.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
So
Yeah,
where did
he
that
does.
come from for you as a?
Oh, I used to be senior corporate management, and I've done a lot of management courses. and I used to work for a gentleman who was in a previous life very senior in military intelligence,
Mm.
who was my director at the time, who basically taught me everything I know about leadership. He was absolutely marvelous. All the quotes in the book attributed to the captain are actually quotes from my old director. He knows
Yeah.
this. He's quite cool with that. But yeah, yeah, no, we're still sort of loosely in touch. But there is a lot of that sort of thing, and
Mhm.
I'm trying to sort of show that Thomas is doing this stuff instinctually. Obviously, he's not been taught anything other than the brief bits of coaching he had from the captain during the war, but there isn't time to do sit down management coaching when the cannon is shooting at you. So it's just these little snatches here and there that he's picked up on and thought, oh, I can use that, and has adopted it into his style of gang leadership.
It's very effective and it works. But it was funny that I could see those parallels between what Thomas was saying and doing and the other books I was reading at the same time. I
Mm.
thought that. So I wanted to ask you
Still,
about that. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. No, it's funny. I mean, I don't want to sort of drop any spoilers, but as the series progresses, an emerging theme is that government and organized crime don't look a hell of a lot different when you look at them closely. So there's a lot of that sort of thing going on, and I think you could apply it to corporate management styles as well. It's not a million miles away, is it, at the end of the day?
No, it's one's legal and one's not.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly that.
So if you were a character in your books, would you survive?
Well, me as I am in the real world, no, I wouldn't have thought so. No, not for long, anyway. No, I'm not bad in a fist fight, but I don't think I could. Not much cop with swords.
And so with I noticed in your biography that you work in on the IT field.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And
I've just moved into cyber actually, but I've done
mm,
data center hosting and outsourcing for best part of 30 years now.
so I think every because I used to work in IT and everyone has a funny story, a funny experience working in IT. Do you have any funny stories or
Oh, I've got some alarming stories. I don't know about funny ones, but I don't know if you've ever worked in a data center environment.
mm,
But yeah, okay. So I mean, back in the 90s, so it's a bit of an old style data center now. I was I was pulling a late one, laying fiber, and then we used to have the raised floor design. You had the tile lifter and all this sort of thing. Oh, it must have been about 2 a.m. I think. And we had this huge IBM tape robot in this great big glass enclosure, and it was, I don't know, 50 meters long, maybe. Good thing on tank tracks with a big grabby arm, and I don't know, probably north of a 200,000 IBM cartridges in the rack. And it's sound asleep because it's the middle of the night, and it's just sort of sitting there. All
yeah.
fine. And I've got to run cable under this enclosure, and I'm like, oh, he's Robbie. We used to call him Robbie the robot. Robbie's asleep. That'll be all right. So I mean, I don't know what health and safety would say these days, but in the 90s, if you had to run fiber, you lifted one tile, your oppo lifted the tile you were going to come up from about 100 meters away. You got in the cavity with the cable spool in your hand and just sort of bear crawled under the floor until you just feel like a mole looking for the light ahead of the other tile you're going to come up out of. I really hope it's not allowed anymore. But I was right under the robot enclosure. Well, I would know some bastard must have started a batch job on the mainframe as this thing suddenly roared into life, charged over my head, and I thought the world was ending. It's just like an earthquake. Oh, I don't like this. Oh, dear me. Absolutely bonkers.
The longest crawl of your life, huh? Go
It was, yeah. So it was nobody's favourite job. I was the trainee at the time, and as I was sending down, he's only little. I was like, what the fuck do I have to? Oh no! If I never have to lay another fibre optic again in my life, it'll be too soon. I'll tell you. But no, no. Thankfully, those days are long past.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny that what used to be a huge enclosure, big mainframe rooms full is
Mm.
now just you put in your pocket.
Yeah. Oh, it's nuts, isn't it? Absolutely nuts. How much it's changed. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
It really
wild.
is. Everything's got so boring as well. I mean, the last time I was physically in a data center is probably about 5 years ago. But it's just rows of wardrobes, isn't it? And you just think, oh, there's nothing to look at anymore, is there? Where's the big flashing lights and spinny things and robots running up and down? It's none of that anymore. It's just
Oh,
another server rack, big whoop.
just green and red lights and
Yeah. Oh, and I don't think they even still have the Night Riders on the back anymore. It's very boring.
yeah, it's pretty
Yeah.
bland. Yeah, the good old days, right?
Yeah. Oh, definitely, man. Yeah.
Yeah, it's wild how far we've come from
Mm.
even just 10 years ago. It's
Oh,
amazing.
it is. I mean, you think that there's more computing power on a cheap ass Samsung now than there was on the moon rocket. It's incredible.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
is incredible.
absolutely. Yeah,
So
amazing
we did.
stuff. This is why I could never write science fiction. I don't know how anybody writes science fiction that isn't obsolete 5 years after it's published. I mean, unless you're doing ridiculously far future stuff where it's basically magic anyway.
Yeah,
Technology is changing so fast. I mean, I love Neuromancer. The seminal cyberpunk book. It's wonderfully written and it was hugely influential. And you read it now and it's just bollocks. I mean, this guy's smuggling 5 megabytes of memory. Oh, do me a favour. I'm sure at the time it was written in, I think it was 1983, 84, maybe. That probably sounded an impossible amount, but impossible don't stay impossible for more than a couple of years in IT, does it?
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
amazing stuff. Oh no, I couldn't do that. That's just mm, too difficult.
I was surprised how influential that because I hadn't read it until last year. But there's so many things that came from that book. It's really
Oh yeah,
hugely
yeah.
influential. Yeah,
Well, I think again, it's one of those things that isn't what it is. It's not really a sci-fi book, is it? It's a noir PI story with a bit of sci-fi slapped on it, and he accidentally invented virtual reality whilst doing it. Despite he knew absolutely nothing about computers, he wrote Neuromancer on a typewriter. You know,
oh wow.
and he just made everything up, and it started to sort of accidentally all come true. It's amazing. But then he
So
still got payphones. He foresaw virtual reality, which was nobody had even dreamed of at the time, but didn't foresee mobile phones. And you just think, oh, a sci-fi writer's lot is not a happy one, is it?
it got me thinking reading that book. Is did he get those predictions right, or did they come to be because of that book?
Oh, now, well, that's a question, isn't it? I don't know. I mean, obviously the AI is still a distant pipe dream. But the virtual reality stuff, I mean, did we invent virtual reality because he dreamed it up and people went, "Oh, that's cool. Let's see if we can do it." I don't know. It wouldn't surprise me, to be honest. But no, it's some of it's strangely prophetic. It really is.
It really is.
Mm.
And we did have a couple of questions. Let me pull them up here on Twitter if I can find them. So the first one was from Boiled Jellyfish, and he wants to know,
Okay.
yeah, he wants the origin story of Stan the Railway Cat.
So stand the road. Honest to God, I am more famous on Twitter for my cat than I am for anything I've ever written. Everybody loves my cat. So I don't know is the origin story. This I wish I did. But he's just a rescue from, and we got him from the rescue place last January, and they called him Stan. Though nobody had any clue what his original name was because he was found stray. And I thought Stan, yeah, kind of suits him. We'll keep that. But apparently he'd been brought in by the station master of a tiny little provincial whistle stop railway station because he'd been living stray by the railway tracks. I said, "Oh,
Hmm.
this is Stan. He was found by the railway." And I just thought, Stan the Railway Cat would be a great name for a kid's book. So yeah, it just stuck, and he's quite photogenic. So every time I put a picture of him on Twitter, I just hashtag it Stan the Railway Cat. And I swear, half my Twitter followers at least are only there for the cats. Who probably never read one of my books. Twitter's a good place to have a cat, but no, I wish I knew his origins. I've no idea.
Yeah,
But
come, yeah,
he's a lovely boy.
come for the cat and stay for the books, right?
That's the one. Yeah, that's it. Well,
Yeah.
I always say everybody in this house works, and Stan's job is in PR. Excuse me.
And Nick Borelli wants to know about your love of whiskey and Motorhead.
Oh, well, the love of whiskey, self-explanatory, isn't anybody who doesn't like whiskey's got something wrong with
Yeah.
them. Motorhead. Oh, I've always loved Motorhead since I was 14 or so. And I first discovered heavy metal when I was in high school, as most people do. The first album I ever bought was Adamant's Kings of the World Frontier, and
Mm.
then somebody at school introduced me to Iron Maiden, and I was like, oh, I'll have some of that. And I got a couple of their albums, and then I don't think I actually owned a Motorhead album, but we live in a not very large provincial city on the east coast of England, a couple of hours outside London. And it's a university city, and it's a very small concert venue. And some bands started coming now and again, and I was just about getting old enough to be allowed to go to a gig on my own with my friends from school. And the first band I ever saw actually was Zodiac Mind Warp and the Love Reaction. They were just bewildering mixture of greaser rock and hippie shit. And I was like, oh, I like this. This is fun. And they're not age carding anybody at the bar, so yeah, we'll have some of this. We'll be back, boys.
Yeah.
And then Motorhead played, and it was like, I like that cover art. Have you got any? No, I ain't got any. No, I ain't got any. I'll go anyway. So live music used to be cheap
Mm.
back. Oh, I mean, even for the accounted for inflation, it would gig tickets were about an eighth of what they bloody are now. But we went to see Motorhead, and I had never heard anything so loud in my life. I was just like, oh, we like this. That was the thing for the next week at school. If you hadn't gone to Motorhead, you weren't anyone. Do you know what I mean? But they kept coming back. So I mean, hardly anybody you've really heard of ever plays Norwich. You don't get Iron Maiden play here or Def Leppard or anybody like that. But Motorhead, I think we
Mm.
were on their warm up gig circuit, and they played nearly every year. And it was like, go to Motorhead. Oh yeah, you'll go to Motorhead. It was the 80s. We were young lads and a bit of naughty boys, and there wasn't much else to do in Norwich, to be honest. So,
How many times did you see them in concert?
oh God, 8 at least, I would have thought.
Oh wow.
I think they're probably tied with the Damned for band I've seen the most times, purely because again they used to play here when most other people didn't. I mean, I only managed to see Metallica twice, Iron Maiden once, but
Mm.
Motorhead keep coming to me. So it's like, well, did obviously. Sadly lost Lemmy now, so there won't be any more Motorhead gigs, but they were good times. There's those few years in your sort of, or certainly for lads, isn't there, in your teenage years where you were utterly and tribally defined by music.
Yeah.
It is the most important thing in the world between about, I don't know, 14 and 18 at least. And
Yeah.
so yeah, no, they were good days. But so I'll always love Motorhead for that.
That's great. And so with whiskey, I wanted to ask you about whiskey and get your take on what's your favorite daytime sipper? What's your sipping? If you just want to sip, just to relax.
At the Glenlivet, I think for a sipper, something a bit more challenging of an evening, something like Lefroy or Smokehead, then more sort of peaty Islay. But I find Spaceside's the easiest whiskies to drink, definitely.
Mm.
A little bit too easy, according to my wife. But there we go. Won't go into that.
With Lefroy, forget the name of it. The peat, the really heavy peat. Do you love
Mm,
the?
yeah.
Do you like the peat?
Oh yeah. Definitely. Yeah, Ardbeg's a good one as well if you like that sort of thing. That's
Mhm.
extremely good. I don't know how available that's going to be in the States. We certainly should be able to get Lefroy over there.
Yeah, I actually have some Lefroy on the counter in there, and
Oh, okay.
yeah, it's really good stuff. And
Mm,
we always
it is.
my friends don't enjoy it as much, so it's always mine. So we always have it.
Oh, what a shame.
Yeah. Oh man. Yeah.
Yeah,
Merry Christmas, and then it ends up on my counter, so it's a win-win.
that's all good. Yeah.
What whiskey do you? What's your special occasion whiskey?
Oh, yeah, special occasion whiskey, Dalmore.
Mm.
Very fond of the Dalmore. That's quite pricey, but it is nice. And oh yeah, Macallan 20-year-old.
Ooh.
That's exceptional. That's definitely special occasion money, but it is really really nice. Yeah.
Do you have do you have a special? Do you celebrate when you finish a book? Is there something you do to kind of let unwind?
I don't have rituals. I mean, by the time I've finished a book. I'm just sort of ready to fall down, really. I mean, yeah, I'm nearly 50 years old. I'm past the going out on the town to celebrate things. I was just like, oh, I'm just gonna sit and fall asleep in my armchair with a bottle of whiskey and worry about it all in the morning.
And Luke Tarzian wanted to know about your cat. We could talk about your cat. And
Oh yeah, yeah.
yeah,
As
Senpai had,
everybody wants to know about the cat. Oh, I don't
yeah,
know.
you made a name for yourself. It's good. Like I said, Twitter is a good place to own a cat because
Oh yeah,
people,
definitely.
people love cats. So, do you have a favorite album that you'll never get tired of?
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, two. They're both by Ronnie James Dio. So Last in Line and Holy Diver, two of my
Mm.
absolute all-time favorite albums. Dio, I think, I mean, he's a classically trained vocalist. His range was absolutely staggering, and I mean, I've been a Black Sabbath fan forever. Anyway, no, he had a good run in Sabbath and took a lot of that style with him into the solo band. And yeah, a lot of what he picked up in Rainbow as well. But there will never be another singer like Dio, as far as I'm concerned.
Mm.
Because I mean, I love nearly every genre of heavy metal, but I only like singers who sing. I can't be doing with the death growling kind of thing. It doesn't do
Yeah.
it for me. But now singers like Dio and Ozzy and Bruce Dickinson from Iron Maiden, they could actually sing, and that's what you want. But I love the heavy music that goes behind it, and I think the Dio albums absolutely encompass everything I love about heavy metal.
Mm.
Fantastic stuff.
Mm. Good stuff. And do you listen to music while you write?
Oh yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely, definitely. I tend to have sort of thematic soundtrack albums for books, or at least for series. I mean, I wrote most of the Burn Man books to 70s punk music,
Mm.
Clash and Joy Division, the Jam and Sex Pistols and that kind of thing, real angry oi sort of stuff. And all of War for the Rose Throne is to classical metal. So a
Mm.
lot of Dio, fair bit of Sabbath, bit of Iron Maiden, that kind of thing. But yeah,
Mm.
oh no, I have to have music on what I'm writing. Definitely. I stop a lot of the time. I stop even hearing it after a while. But it's the rhythm of it, and it's always really familiar stuff that I know so well. It doesn't matter if I stop hearing it, and I'll be hacking away at the keys, and something like, oh, we're on track 8. Where'd the last 3 go? Oh, never mind. We've written another 1,500 words. That's fine. Put it on repeat. Go again. Just well, but it'd probably drive a lot of people up the wall. But that works for me. But then I sort of read about other people that write in coffee shops, and I just think, oh God, how can you? With people talking and bustling and clattering. No, shut up and go away. And let me shut myself away with my 100 decibel heavy metal and I can get some work done. But, we're all different in how we work.
Yeah.
Something's what works for one writer just isn't going to work for another. But it's just how it is.
Definitely true. And there's a couple of questions I like to ask every person I talk to.
Yeah.
And the first one is, do you have any favorite family recipes?
Oh, but I could burn water, mate. Honestly, I have some favourite things my wife cooks.
Yeah.
I'm not even allowed in the kitchen to operate anything more serious than the kettle. So, no, no. I mean, I think a sadly lost family recipe. My nan, when I was a kid, used to make the world's best apple pie. She had 3 apple trees in her garden. It was always made with apples from her own garden.
Oh wow.
Oh, it was probably 50% sugar, honestly, but it was absolutely glorious. But sadly, that recipe went when Nan did. So, no,
Mm.
I don't know. But no, my wife's a really good cook and she enjoys cooking. So, I don't think she'd want me allowed, let loose in the kitchen anyway. So, arrangement kind of works for us.
Yeah, me too. I'll screw up a bowl of cereal. So thankfully, my wife likes to
Uh-huh,
cook it. So
that's
I
good.
let her handle that part. It's no good. So was there ever a hobby that you wanted to try, but when you tried it, you didn't enjoy it?
Oh, I didn't enjoy it. I'm not sure there was really. I mean, my main hobbies outside of writing used to be martial arts and weightlifting. You can see I've still got the weights
Mm-hmm.
rig behind me. I still do that a bit now and again. Martial arts I did for a long time. I forget exactly how long. I got my black sash and instructor's certificate and
Mm,
everything in Taoist Kung Fu. But it just came down to time in the end because I work a full-time corporate day job like most authors do, to be honest. And I wanted to write and I wanted to lift, and our martial arts went out the window in the end as the thing. Something had to give,
yeah.
and that was the one that went. And yeah, I got into powerlifting, and again, that's gone a bit by the by, to be honest, because it's just time. I don't know. I find the older I get, the less time I got, and I'm sure it's supposed to be the other way around. But I mean, between working a day job, writing, editing, running the business side of being a writer, and doing this kind of thing, which I do really enjoy, but it's still time. I was 2 hours on panels yesterday. I'm doing this now, and I'm thinking, well, by the time I've finished talking to you, it's going to be 9:30, maybe. I think I'd just like to sit and have a read for a little while before
Yeah.
I go to bed and actually relax for some time. You know what I mean? And still, you still got to mow the lawn and
Yeah.
do stuff around the house and just the sort of general business of keeping life running. And you think, oh God, there really isn't any more time for hobbies, unfortunately, than what I do now.
Yeah,
But
definitely.
now I don't think there's anything I abandoned because I discovered I didn't like it. There's a lot of things I didn't start because I knew I'd never be any good at them.
Mhm.
I am a bit one of those people that if I don't think I'll be good at something, I'm not going to do it at all. If you
Yeah.
know what I mean, which
Oh, yeah.
is probably not a great way to be. But so like somebody gave me an electric guitar once when I was about 19. And I thought, oh, yeah, I'm not going to be a rock star, am I? Because, everybody's going to be a rock star when they're 19. And I had one guitar lesson and I was like, oh, fuck this. I can't do this. This is so much harder than it looks. No, I'm not even going to try. Oh,
Yeah.
massive character flaw that is, I know, but that's just how I am.
Yeah. Well, I just have two more questions for you. So,
Sure.
the first one is: has your experience with martial arts helped you write combat scenes or action scenes?
I don't know. I've been asked this before and I can't remember what I said now. I mean, I don't write fist fight scenes.
Mhm.
Everybody in my world is armed because
Right.
in certainly in gangland circles and especially in gangland circles in about 1600, everybody was armed to the teeth at all times and nobody thought any different of it. But I think to an extent it's taught me that real fights are very short and
Mm.
extremely unpleasant. And you don't get these long drawn out fencing matches up and down stairs. It doesn't happen. You know what I mean? I don't know if you know Christian Cameron on Twitter.
I don't think so.
He's a fascinating man. He really is. He writes fantasy as Miles Cameron, science fiction as Christian Cameron, and he's an incredibly accomplished historical sword fighter and reenactor. And he does a series on Twitter called Writing Fighting,
Mm.
where he demonstrates different plays from the sword manuals and things. And none of his sword fights that he's shown last more than about 2 seconds flat. It is that quick that somebody who knows what they're doing will destroy you. It's as
Oh,
simple
yeah.
as that. It's unbelievable. So I've definitely rolled that into the books. It's a kick, a shove, a stab, done. That's it. No
Yeah.
fencing matches. No, just knife him and get on with your day.
And the last question I have for you is: what was your first job?
My first job, well, my very first job actually. But we have a thing in the UK called work experience. I don't know if you do it in the States. And when you're about 2 years from graduating high school, you have to go out and find, or usually your dad leans on one of his mates at their company to find you somewhere to go and experience being at work for a week or 2 weeks or whatever it is. And my dad's friend at the time worked on the local newspaper as a journalist. So I did. I was technically a cub reporter for a fortnight when I was 15. But after that, when I didn't go to college, when I finished high school, I just went to work at a local corporate. And what was I doing? Something soul destroyingly tedious, office admin shit. I can't even remember what it was now. But as soon as I possibly could, I started learning IT and escaped into the grown-up world. So yeah, I've been corporate IT nearly all my working life.
Yeah. It was a good field to get into at that time,
Oh
definitely.
yeah, yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Well, I've now got out of data centers, as I say, because that's a dying field. It really is. And I've just last week started a new role in the same company, but in
Mhm.
cybersecurity, which is it is currently the good area to get
Oh,
into.
yeah.
So I'm thinking, yeah, no, that'll do me till I can retire. Yeah,
It's a good field to be in, especially now.
definitely. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It's
So
interesting as well. Yeah,
oh, yeah, definitely. It's, gonna be the place to be where all the action
yeah,
is.
I think so. Yeah, totally.
Yeah. So I know you're really busy, so I really appreciate you taking the time. It's been a pleasure. So thanks again
Oh, it's
for
been good to
going by
speak
the
to you.
chat. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. Cheers, everyone.
Yeah. Thanks. Thank you, Peter. I'm always